This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a Sunday evening edition of Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson, joined as always by fellow editor over at Mavs Moneyball, Josh Bowe. Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm thankful that you've survived your so far solo parenting adventure and you're talking with me tonight. So it's good to see you and you're looking good. So not a lot to complain about Mavericks wise, that's for sure.
Yeah, so some quick housekeeping before we kind of get right to the show. It is 8:35 p.m. on Sunday, March 31st. It's Easter Sunday. My wife had to head out of town for a family emergency. I am solo parenting this evening. I have until 9:45. It's a firm out because that's when the baby starts rumbling for his nighttime feed. So I will want to try to do both these shows in a little less than an hour and 10 minutes, which is usually about what we do. I don't really have a thought about that. I've not held a live show in a couple of nights, but I was like dragging ass at like 6:30 and just I've had enough caffeine to kill a horse. So now I'm like, let's do some podcasting, and then I'm going to go upstairs. Let's feed the baby. Anyway, what a great ass-kicking performance by these Dallas Mavericks, 125-107. Can you kind of walk us through the first half of this game? Because I was listening to Coop on my phone, but I couldn't actually watch the game in the first, and your camera died.
Oh, perfect timing. Okay, there we go. I mean, the first half was Luka took a sledgehammer to the Rockets, and there was nothing left of them. He beat them to a bloody pulp. I mean, he had 29 in the first half. He was basically the entire offense. Kyrie started pretty slowly. But basically, like the Rockets, they started overhelping. Well, not overhelping, but they helped. Didn't necessarily send a hard two at the ball, but they helped on his drives. And they played a weird defense where they were either switching and letting the big man, who I guess it would be either Jabari Smith, who that's an okay matchup for Houston, or Jake Lawndale, who that's not a good matchup for Houston. And they left him on an island.
Jock. Isn't it Jock Landale?
So, yeah, Jock Landale, sorry.
Even more ridiculous.
Yeah. And Luka was just nailing step back threes. But before that, like PJ and Dante Exum hit a couple open threes because the Rockets were sending help at Luka. And that kind of got the Mavericks a cushion. And then the Rockets were like, oh, crap, let's stop doing that. Let's just switch and let Luka work one-on-one, which is something that we talked about earlier about how that could be something teams can throw at the Mavericks to get them off their game because of how limited the other role players can be at times. And Luka just detonated. And by then it didn't matter because they already had such a lead that it didn't matter that Luka was just going one-on-one ISO ball the whole game because it was working. He was making all of his shots for the most part. And they had already built like a 10 to 12 point lead before the Rockets kind of switched things up. So they were basically throwing a Hail Mary that Luka didn't have it in him. And Luka had it in him. And he was pretty awesome the whole time.
And you know, the Luka of it all is just so funny to watch. I'm trying to find a video. My friend Jared Dubin put together this video as maybe a week ago about how ridiculous Luka has been with his 3-point shooting, and really how Luka is now getting off this shot. It's a hang dribble thing, and I'm gonna post one of the links. It's Luka's step back, and he does a video analysis of it. I'm gonna post the link in the live stream, and I'll try to remember to post it in the show notes. But when Luka's hitting his 3-point shot, he's the best offensive player in the world, and it's not fucking close. Like, I understand Jokic is an incredible offensive player, but Jokic doesn't have the shooter mentality that Luka does. And I think that works both for and against, depending on the situation and the player. It's what makes them two unique guys. But when Luka's hitting threes, he is absolutely unfathomable to guard. And you know, I get these fucking alerts on my phone. LeBron James, 9 of 10 from 3. And I'm like, Luka has hit 9 threes. What are we doing? Like, granted, he kind of kept shooting, so he was trying to get to 50 points, but he was like, could have Jordan shrugged in that first half. He just breaks. If it's not Luka, it's Kyrie. One of the two of them is stands up like a better than average chance of breaking your defensive game plan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was pretty funny. So he's got 47. So that's 47 post new officiating world that we live in. So is his 47 like a 70-pointer from before the All-Star break? I mean, because he only shot 5 free throws.
This is a funny conversation because, you know, a number of people in my life really think that Luka has an actual chance to break the 82 or, you know, score 81 points or more and break Kobe Bryant's kind of modern day record. And I tend to agree because Luka is a significantly better shooter than people understand. Luka was yes. Yeah. And Luka was so mediocre for the longest time. I mean, for qualified shooters, I remember HP Basketball telling me this, and this is like after like year 2, maybe it's year 3. But for Luka had the worst percentage amongst volume shooters.
Oh, he was a terrible 3-point shooter like his first 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And so it's now he's come around to where, and that video that I posted, I don't want to share it to the stream directly because I think I might get copyright issues, but Luka doesn't really even take the step backs regularly that he used to take now. It's kind of hard to see from the isometric angle that you get in the NBA game, but Luka now doesn't really he's almost at that Dirk Nowitzki fade stage where he doesn't need space. He just gets the shot off. And the shot tonight against the Rockets, which guy in defender? I saw it in the second half. Who was it? It was Jabari Smith Jr. He hit one over Jabari Smith Jr. I think it was from the right wing. I could be mistaken which one it was, but it was like you could see that guy he turns around. He's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And that dude's 7 foot tall guarding at the perimeter. I mean, it's just, and you know, this game was over at halftime. Yeah, you know, Ime Udoka, who everybody really likes as a coach for a lot of really, you know, valuable reasons. Ime Udoka was so pissed at his team, he didn't know how to coach them because there was just nothing left to do. I mean, you got a couple of guys on this team that in theory should absolutely be able to stick with Luka Doncic. You have Dylan Brooks, shout out to his 0 for 8 performance, really fantastic, and Amen Thompson. Those two guys are designed in a lab to beat Luka, and they did nothing. Like today was a game where Luka was apparently a game time decision up until about 30 minutes before the game, and Luka just destroyed them both.
Yeah, I mean, Thompson got like 2 fouls like in the first 5 minutes of the game, and like he went to the bench, and that basically threw off his entire game. Like he only played 20 minutes because it was like he had 2 fouls in the first quarter. By the time he came back into the game, it was like the Mavs were rolling. Like there was you weren't stopping the train. But yeah, you talk about Luka and his 3-point shooting. What's hilarious, that shot you talk about, you know, the one where he, if it was Jabari Smith, where he's like, what am I supposed to do? We haven't even talked about the most ridiculous shot he made. Did you see this? It wasn't a 3-pointer. It was almost a 3-pointer where he basically did the step through granny shot, underhand layup.
That was the silliest shot.
24 feet.
The Memphis game winner. When he was all hungover 2 years ago, that's the silliest shot I've seen him make in a game. And
I mean, literally, and that was against Smith, and Smith had him locked up, and like he literally did that. I mean, he literally did that thing. He looked to the bench, and he was like, threw up his hands, and it's like, you know, like that's it. That described this game perfectly. There was nothing the Rockets could have done to win this game. Like they could have shot a little bit better from 3, but like when Luka's throwing in stuff like that, like, I mean, he was toying with the rock. Like he didn't need to shoot that shot. Like he did that like on purpose. Like he wanted to demoralize them by making a shot like that. Like that was purposeful. Like that wasn't, there are desperation situations where you're in the situation Luka was in, where he's crowded with the shot clock winding down and a defender's on him. He could have taken a different shot, but he took that one because I think he was like, you know what? Everything's going in. I kind of have the balls to take this one. We're up 20. Like, let's put this team to bed. And I think that's kind of like, I think he did that on purpose. Like, I think Luka is very much aware of like the humiliation factor when he's playing.
Oh, he also loves to play Brooks.
Yes, that too.
Because Brooks is one of the few guys, and I mean this, Brooks is one of the few guys who I think has Luka's earnest respect, but then Luka also wants to grind into the ground. Like there's an individual thing where, you know, Booker, it's probably like Booker and Brooks, like are probably the top two guys that Luka wants to absolutely destroy. So that was really, really something. And you know what? X-Laws 87 brings up the did you see Luka's pregame shot? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't see his pregame
This
shot.
fucking guy. Let me see if I'm going to have to go look for it. Filibuster for me for a second. Okay. This was one of the silliest things I've seen. I can show this one and not get us copyrighted out once I find it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why, like I said on Twitter, and I think some people got mad about it. Like that's why the Phoenix Suns fan incident was so silly, was because Luka is such a shit talker, and like he lives for these like humiliating moments. Like he was talking after every shot he made tonight. Like he was talking to the Rockets, he was talking to the bench, he was talking to the courtside fans. Like he's absolutely aware of when a shot is gonna like humiliate an opponent and put them on a highlight reel, and he's like, I'm gonna go for this because I want to sink the dagger a couple more inches deeper into the back or the heart of my opponent. Like he has that flair for the game where it's not like he's kind of running into these as a coincidence, which maybe like someone like Dirk did. Like I don't think Dirk was trying to humiliate his opponents. Like Luka very much knows when it's a big moment and when he can kind of add salt to the wound, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, it was hilarious.
Let me show you this. So the fact that you didn't see this is going to make this all the better for you watching it for the first time, because it's one of the dumber things I've seen, just kind of period. And then I'll explain what it is, because it's only like a 7-second clip once it's over here. Here it is. Let's go here. Watch this.
Wait a minute. Wait. Wait.
All right, I'm going to play it.
Wait, replay it. Wait. Oh, okay. He hit it off the score. I didn't really catch that he hit it off the scoreboard, and I was like, did he tenant that shit into the basket?
Yes. The answer to that
invert the ball. Yeah.
The answer to that question is yes. So for those of you who are listening on the audio stream, if you didn't see this, the Mavericks posted this to their Twitter account. Luka is standing underneath his own goal, like kind of right at the restricted area. He shoots the ball almost straight up, and it hits the Jumbotron scoreboard area, bounces back, hits the center of the backboard, and in for a shot. It is as X-Laws 87 in the chat says, who even tries this? That is correct.
When you're that good at basketball and you're running out of things to work on, you have time to fuck around.
It was one of those things that I didn't understand. Do you remember last year when Luka went on with Dude Perfect and basically messed around doing trick shots with Dude Perfect for a day?
Yeah, I remember that.
And like somehow that didn't go viral, because I think Dude Perfect isn't really Twitter's jam, but like it was just messing and just messing around. Like it's just incredible. Okay, I want to go to a quick break here. Thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. If you have the opportunity to go down and like the stream while you're watching on the YouTube, that would be very helpful for Josh and I. While you're there, if you consider subscribing to the show. Bit by bit, we are getting closer to 3,000 subscribers, which would be really fun if we got to that before the playoffs. We're about 300 people away, though, so that might be a bit of a stretch. We go live after every single Dallas Mavericks game. I tried to do one of these fan post shows like I used to do on the audio only apps, but it's a little harder these days with the baby. Going to do one today, and we'll do more. We'll probably do one almost after every game in the playoffs for sure, because the Mavericks at this point are absolutely making the playoffs. We're really appreciative for those of you who are listening on the audio stream. If you're listening for the first time on the audio stream, please go find and subscribe Pod Maverick for however you get your podcasts. Now I'm going to cut to a quick break for our ads. If you wouldn't mind listening to those, that is how Josh and I actually make a little bit of scratch off this, and our wives tolerate our doing this frequently. Thanks so much. We will be right back. Okay, so Luka's absolute silliness aside, allowed the Mavericks to sort of withstand an interesting struggle bus of a first half for Kyrie, only for then Kyrie to carry the Mavericks late when Luka was kind of angling for his 50 points.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And what did you think about his game tonight?
About Kyrie's game?
Yeah.
It's kind of, how many games has he done this year where it looks like he's not ready to play in the first half? Not necessarily he was pretty bad.
I simply won't tweet about him because I'm afraid of things getting thrown back in my face, because almost every time he comes alive and it's like, oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I watched his first half and I was like, wow, this is pretty bad, but I wasn't concerned about it because I was like, well, he's probably going to turn it on in the second half. And he did. I mean, he was really good in the fourth quarter. I mean, I think he scored 24 points. I think he scored 14 of his 24 in the fourth quarter. I mean, I can look that up real quick because I think the NBA finally updated their box scores for fourth quarters, and they did. He scored 15. So he scored 15 of his 24 in the fourth quarter. 6 of 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 4 assists, no turnovers. He was great in the fourth quarter when they needed him, and they did kind of need him because the way the Rockets were actually defending the Mavericks, I mean, Luka was ISOing all the time, and our staffer, Matthew Phillips, said it in our Slack. He was like, I hope this game doesn't get close in the second half because the offense has no flow because of the way the Rockets have been guarding the Mavericks for the last 25 minutes, which is just, let Luka go one-on-one and not let anyone else do anything. So it was important for Kyrie to get those buckets because the Rockets were trying to make a little bit of a push.
And they did pretty good. They actually made multiple pushes.
They technically outscored the Mavericks by 3 points in the second half. So they tried to make this a game. And it's not a surprise that the offense looked a little herky-jerky when Luka wasn't on the floor because the offense, this was one of those games where the offense was Luka.
Right.
And that's the benefit of having two stars is, okay, you don't have a lot of flow because the team is guarding you one-on-one and you're not getting a lot of your easy pet actions. And your star, your best players on the floor. What do? You got another star. That's why you have two offensive superstars, so you can avoid those situations when teams guard you like this. So, Kyrie was absolutely crucial. And he, what more can we say about how he played in the fourth? He did all the things he does. He made 2 or 3 pull-up transition threes, which feels like the most automatic. He even made one in the first half when he was struggling. That's such an automatic shot for him. It's I feel like it's going down 9 times out of 10 every time he takes a pull-up transition three. And then he got in the paint a little bit, made a couple of mid-rangers, and he passed well. He had 7 assists. He actually, that's more than his season average. So he ran a little bit more pick and roll in the second half as the primary ball handler when Luka was on the bench, because they tried to play Jaden Hardy in the first half, and Kyrie was spotting up around Jaden Hardy, and that did not look good. That did not continue into the second half, and Kyrie was kind of more the primary initiator, which I think everyone wants to see. When Luka's not on the floor, I know Kyrie is very deferential, and I know he likes to play off ball, but when Luka's off the floor, he really needs to be the primary guy running pick and rolls and getting guys where they need to go.
Yeah,
he did that more.
He gave, and I don't really want to focus on this, but poor Jaden Hardy had a chance to show his worth.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lay that at Kyrie's feet. Kyrie giving him a chance to shine. I understand why, but that's just not what Hardy's game is. And he got put into a blunt, and he looked bad. Kyrie's not Kyrie. Hardy's just not a point guard, and it's when he's put into a position to succeed, he's fine. And when he's not, he looks really, really freaking terrible. But we'll just leave that one alone past that. Yeah. I did want to ask, Dante Exum and Lively were the first two off the bench tonight, which I could be wrong, but that feels like a recent thing because Coach Kidd he's really leaned on Hardaway optionality for a lot of the season. And do we make anything of of kind of coming off the bench with Exum first. I mean, it sort of feels like the Mavericks' secret weapon, and I don't want them to I don't know.
Well, they didn't overextend it tonight. He only played 18 minutes.
Sure, but I feel like it's kind of a showing of the hand.
Oh.
Not to sound like Rick Carlisle.
Yeah,
I'm the one who always bitches about them not playing it, sort of thing.
I was about to say, isn't that the thing you hate the most? Like teams, up for the playoffs.
No, that's okay. Yeah, you're right. They should do it. I'm glad they did it. It seems like those lively. I mean,
they're zeroing in on I think their playoff core, which is going to make the Josh Green discussion really interesting.
Who do you think it is? Let's go through it real quick. Let's talk about the top 8.
Because the starting 5 are playing big minutes. So those 5.
So it's PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., Daniel Gafford, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic.
Those guys are playing. So then who's your first? You're probably playing what, a 7-man rotation, 8-man? Are they going to play an 8-man rotation?
I think they should play an 8-man rotation given some of the health and just let's just call it the youth or inexperience of some of these guys in the playoffs, I think would be.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically going to come down to there's 4 guys that are going to potentially play off the bench. It'll be Maxey, Tim, Lively, Exum. And it's like and I don't know if it's going to be consistent because, maybe there's a night where Maxey doesn't play a lot because they just like rolling with Gafford and Lively. Maybe there's a situation where they feel like they need to have Maxey out there and that changes things.
I'm okay with situational Maxey.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And Maxey played more tonight. I know his minutes weren't good and people were really mad, but Lively got injured in the second half, which didn't seem like a bad injury. Matthew Phillips saw it in our Slack. He said it was calf injury, and I kind of got spooked because calf injuries are not good.
Sure.
But he got kicked in the calf, so it might be more of like a bruise than a strain and maybe more precautionary. And Lively was like getting it. He never left the bench. Like, I don't know if he went to the locker room, and he was like getting up and dancing and celebrating in the second half when the Mavericks were making 3-pointers. So I think that was more, hey, this is like a 20-point game in the second half.
His plus minus is a riot tonight.
He was awesome. He was really good in the first half.
Talk to me about why, because I didn't get to see it.
Because it's the thing that they've been doing for the last 3 weeks. Like, they just locked the hell out of the paint. Like, he was rotating and guarding like really well. There were a couple instances where they gave him some open threes because they kind of tried a couple different things. Like, they had Lively play drop. They had him do 2 on the ball. They had him kind of show and recover where he comes up at the level of the screen, but then tries to come back to his man. Try to hold up the ball handler enough for the defender to come back and get his man so Lively can go back to his man. And they gave up a couple open threes trying to rotate around that, but that's going to happen. And it wasn't, it didn't hurt them tonight. Like, they're so dedicated and they're so good right now at guarding the paint that I don't think they're that worried about the open threes that they're giving up.
Are they giving up fewer? This is something you probably can't answer offhand, but I feel like during this win streak, they're giving up fewer open corner threes. Like, that was a real, what the fuck are they doing situation for me. And I just haven't seen as many. And maybe it's because the Mavericks are winning.
The last I checked, they were their share of corner threes given up was higher since the All-Star break than before. Or pre-trade. I've actually got the number up right now because I've got a column that I've been kind of brewing that I've been getting data and research for. So let me pull up my notepad. So pre-trade deadline, they were giving up 11% of the total shots they gave up were corner threes, which was 24th in the league. Post-trade deadline, and this was before the Kings games. So maybe the Kings game, the last 3 games might change stuff, but that's, 3 games. That's a small sample. So post-trade deadline, 11.2% of their total shots are corner threes, which is still 24th. So they're still giving up a decent amount of corner threes. How many did they give up? They only gave up 5 tonight, which was pretty good. So they were better about it tonight. And I think they were better about it the last Kings game. So they're getting there, but they're giving up a lot of above the break threes. But I think that's a tactical thing. And they're walling off the paint. Like, the Rockets actually did okay in the paint, considering all things considered. They shot 18 of 29. That's still 62%. That's below the league average of 66%. They scored 46 points in the paint, which is like average-ish. And that felt like a lot because the Mavericks have been giving up like 40 points in the paint on average, or like 42. So like even tonight where the Rockets kind of got free on a couple baskets near the rim, they were still pretty effective at walling off the paint and making sure it wasn't a layup line. And they guarded the mid-range well, 5 of 16 in the paint outside of the restricted area, which is way below league average. So yeah, I mean, and Lively's a part of that, and Gafford's a part of that too. Like both of them are really in sync with the pick and roll coverage and guarding the rim right now. And they're going to give up some open threes, but I mean, if you don't let teams score easy 2-pointers, I mean, the 3-pointer. I don't want to say the 3-pointers don't matter. Like they're going to run into a night where they get smoked from 3. Like a team's going to hit like 18, 19 3-pointers, but that can happen to any team. Like
yes.
That's just kind of the NBA. Like the one thing that feels that you have more control. Like it's hard to have control over the 3-point line. There's so much variance with shot making. You can control the paint, like in layups. Like that's something that feels more sustainable. And if you can carry that forward, you have a backbone to carry you through, rough stretches, when your shot's not falling.
Well, and see,
but what I'm saying, but going back to the bench, like what's the playoff? Like we've already talked about 4 guys. Like Josh Green's not even playing because he's hurt. Like where does Green fit in with the Exum Hardaway bench minutes? Like does Derek Jones Jr. get squeezed a little bit? I don't know.
What's interesting about all this is if you take the long view of a lot of what Jason Kidd has said going back to his first year, this is his 3rd year for those of us who are bad with math. It feels like he's been here longer than that. Kidd has kind of talked about defending the paint a lot. Mm-hmm. Only the Mavericks didn't have the guys to do it, which makes some of their choices the last 2 years very curious. Like they re-signed Maxi Kleber. They re-signed Dwight Powell. Not really sure why. One of my group chats is just kind of can't, some folks just can't help themselves and do forward projecting stuff. I don't want to do that too much right now, but I do think that the Mavericks have a bit of a stew going, and I think they have some guys that have reasonable appeal that they could maybe move off of and the chance to try out different pieces. Maybe not anybody groundbreaking. Maybe it's just, shuffling around 6, 7, 8, 9 men on the bench. But I'm just going to be interested to see what they do here, because one of the things that we keep talking about, and it's worth talking about, is this rule change interpretation from February 1st on has completely changed how the Dallas Mavericks play basketball. They can play in the fucking mud. Like Gafford looks like a 90s center commanding the paint like he's freaking Dikembe Mutombo, because he's just able to body. It's incredible like that. And that just sort of pushes everything out. Like I hated the bubble Lakers in 2020. They played foul the shit out of you basketball. You know what? It's really fun to watch when you're winning. Foul the shit out of you basketball, which is what the Mavericks are doing. I mean, they really are. They're beating teams to death. It's wild.
And when you think about it, like what was one of the worst things? What was one of the things the Mavericks were terrible at last season? Opponent free throw rate, because they got burned so easily and they had nothing to do. Like their only recourse was, do we give up a layup or do we foul? What happened a lot last season was they did both. Like they gave up.
Well, if you funnel guys to the rim and you don't have a rim protector, you're going to foul a lot. If you funnel guys to the rim and you have a rim protector before February 1st, 2024, you were still going to foul a lot. Now, like Luka against the Kings, what was it? Friday night? Luka, I remember one. It's from the left corner. It started the second half. Luka just let his man Olay only for Gafford to just come out of not nowhere, but just stand there and block the shit out of the guy and hammer him to the ground to a no call, because it almost felt like 2011 verticality rules, which is where Tyson basically was able to stonewall the Kings because they just don't call that kind of contact now. And it's made for much more physical basketball. Now, whether you like it or not, it's kind of a stylistic preference, but it's working for these Mavericks.
Yeah. I mean, when you're one of the worst, I mean, they were like 26th in opponent free throw rate last season. Like what were they last season? I'm going to look it up right now. Sorry to look up stats on the fly, because I mean, this is important. So they were last season. Oh my God. They were 27th in opponent free throw rate. Their opponent free throw rate was 22.7%. They are this season, they are 13th. And they are 19.2% for opponent free throw rate. Now, that's for the whole season. If you want to let me filibuster a little bit longer, let's see what it looks like when we account for since the trade deadline, which is right around when that rule change happened, the officiating change happened, right? Right around February. So I'm going to plug in the first day that Gafford and PJ Washington played against Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Mavericks free throw rate, opponent free throw rate, looks like it's about similar. It's not that far off. So, but still, I think it's still lower than what it was last season. It's still like 3 percentage points. No, it's like 4 percentage points lower. It's 18.5, which is better than the 19 number for the whole season. So yeah, that's such a huge advantage for them that they are not getting called for fouls when they were getting called for fouls so much last season. Yeah. Like that's not even something you can like that fell into their lap, man. Like that's not even, but credit to the team for being like, all right.
I mean, I still think they'd be better.
I
still think that, yes, had the rule change not occurred, and granted, I think there's some people that are kind of downplaying it. I had to explain to one of my friends who kind of only pays attention to basketball from a box score standpoint. I'm just like, this team is different, and yes, they're better, but this has sort of supercharged something that was working. Is kind of how I would play it, and all you can, sometimes you need a little luck for shit to work out. I mean, I not to go too far back in the past, but the Mavericks, believe it or not, in 2011, needed the corpse of Peja Stojakovic to be useful for just the right number of games to go to the Western Conference Finals. Or was it the second round against the Lakers? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just need those little things to work in your favor. And the Mavericks have had some things work in their favor as of late. And, considering how the season started and how the season went, where you had, the Mavericks without Kyrie for 20 games. I mean, they essentially played, we remember this, guys. The Mavericks started out, I think, 8-2, and then proceeded to play 500 basketball from the 11th game of the season right up until the actual trade. They played 500, maybe even slightly sub 500.
That'd be below 500 because they were 26 and 23 at one point.
Yeah. And they bounced back and forth. And so it's just, I'll take the luck. This is not, and we're not attempting to make excuses for the Mavericks. We're just kind of, I just believe in kind of, I don't know. I want to be as passionate and be pro Maverick as I can without being a really stupid fanboy, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense. Can I get in Logan Thompson, our dear friend and occasional Mavs Moneyball writer at one point, not trying to take a shot. He did. We were talking on Twitter, and we were talking about the first quarter, and I saw defensively the Mavericks basically used every single type of pick and roll coverage in the first quarter. They did drop, they did switch, they did level at the screen, show and recover, and they did blitz. And they really if you know the Mavericks for the last in the Jason Kidd era, you would know that tactical variety is not something high on the list of pros for the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. So I saw that and we were talking about it, like what is going on? Why, what has changed? Why is this happening? And I was like, I have a theory. I don't want to say it on Twitter because my goal on Twitter right now is to not have people yell at me.
Yep.
So he wanted me to share it on the podcast, and I've been thinking about it since during this winning run and since the trade deadline. And I don't even know if this is even that spicy of a take, so I'm sorry for teasing it this much. But Jason Kidd, I think, is a front runner coach. Not necessarily in a negative way, because if you've got the pieces, it's good that he's doing the stuff. So that's not bad. But think about last season when the roster was terrible and it felt like he just wasn't doing any, I don't think he's the kind of coach. It didn't
feel like he wasn't. They weren't doing anything. There was nothing to try, and they weren't trying anything.
I don't think he's the kind of coach that's going to take your island of misfit toys and get them to be greater than the sum, more than the sum. The sum is greater than the parts. But he seems to be a guy that likes, when he has what he wants, he's obviously much more engaged. You can just see him on the sideline. He's more engaged just from that, which is kind of superficial. But you think about his coaching career, he retired from the Knicks and immediately joined Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, he went there on purpose because that was a team supposedly on the rise. They just got Mikhail Prokhorov as their owner. They just traded for Darren Williams. There was thoughts they were going to be a super team. He went there. And then as soon as that situation started getting awful, he basically did like a backroom deal to become like the GM coach of the Bucks, who happened to have Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kid's not an idiot. He totally saw that and was like, yeah, I'll be part of that. Let's do that. And then as soon as, they fired him, but then that got stale and he left, and he hasn't been a head coach. He joined the Lakers as an assistant, and now he's,
and he was out of coaching at that point. Like, that's one thing that gets lost in this. Like, kid was literally, he had been sitting at home alone for a year.
Yeah. And
he was toxic.
Yeah. And you saw what the 2022 run when they made the trade, and I think they got some of the pieces he wanted. We've seen the coach's audio clips, like the TNT audio clips where they have the mic'd up thing where he's like he's out there like jumping around doing jumping jacks and yelling at guys. And it's like, well, where did that go? And it's like, I think he kind of like, this sounds really stupid, but I feel like last season he was kind of pouting like at how bad the roster was. Like, it was almost like a silent protest. Like, this stinks, which is kind of funny. Cause he was the mover for McGee. But like, I think he really liked Brunson. Like, I think if you asked him honestly, he wanted Brunson to be back. I don't think he wanted Brunson to go away. I wonder if that pissed him off. Like, I wonder if he was like, this sucks. Like, what, like, you're giving me a bad hand. Like, what am I going to do? And obviously the McGee thing doesn't help. And obviously if you're a head coach in the NBA, you should not have that mindset. But I think that's what it is. I think now that he's got the pieces that he wants and the roster is starting to kind of be like the team that a Jason Kidd coach team wants, I don't think it's a surprise that he seems more engaged on the sidelines. There's more tactical differences. They're changing things up, and things look a little bit better. So that's my take. I don't know.
I like your take. Are you trying to get him to get an extension and hurt me? Is that what you're trying to do here?
I don't know. I thought that people would get mad at me for that take because
it's a good take because it's related to the games, And right now, what everybody should be wanting to talk about is the games. I mean, there's some other interesting elements which I think are going to float up. Like, if the Mavericks, they're currently, where are they in the standings?
They're fifth.
They're fifth in the standings. And not only are they fifth in the standings, they are, they're fifth in the standings. Sorry, my brain was interpreting that as sixth.
Because they're forever trapped in that 6-7 spot.
That's right. Fifth. And so they're a full 2 games back from the Clippers. Like, this is probably as high as the Mavericks are able to go.
And the Clippers have the head-to-head tiebreaker.
Yeah. Right.
So they're basically 3 games back.
Yeah. The Clippers are going to have like do something really stupid, and the Mavericks would effectively have to win out. And I don't know if they have that in them, but they're just going to have some things. They're in a great position. And that's like, the Mavericks have taken care of the things that they're supposed to take care of. And that's about all you can ask for as we head into this sort of thing. And I like talking about the games themselves. I don't like speculating on the future. Not particularly interested on talking about like coaching stuff. Like, Kid has a whole nother year on his contract. That's going to be a thing we talk about a lot in the offseason. And I'm just not here for it at the moment. Is there anything else we should talk about before I bump over to the next show?
I don't know. I don't want to keep you up too late. I will say though, like, they just played, I think, the hardest game left on their schedule. So
see, but they play the Warriors twice, and then they play the Rockets once more.
I know.
And those teams are both fighting for 10. Like, those teams are coming for the Mavericks.
I know. I just don't think the Warriors are good.
They're not good.
They're weird.
But the Mavericks are also absolutely capable of
Luka. Houston's a terrible road team. They're a terrible road team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see it. Like, the 2 Golden State games, like, maybe something's weird. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Golden State. I don't think Houston's good on the road. I mean, they're not good on the road.
I want the Mavericks to close, and I have just seen too many games where Luka Doncic comes out really disinterested. And he came out tonight ready to prove something.
He was. He looked like he wanted to win the MVP tonight.
Yes. And really, that's the only other narrative conversation that's out there right now. Luka at 5th. We're going to get a funky MVP vote because Denver's puttering around. Folks just don't want to vote for Giannis because watching him in the Bucks is like watching like a cement paver.
And he's already got one. So.
Well, it's impressive. Like, what the Bucks and Giannis in particular have done this year after, because their coaching situation was truly bizarre. Giannis is such an impressive basketball player, but folks don't like watching him because he is a destructive force. Like Luka plays with some flair. Giannis absolutely does play with some flair, but I don't think anybody watches the Bucks night in, night out because it's like Giannis kind of has one move: drive to the basket, spin, score. Only he's added some really incredible no-look passing, but it's just not the same as Luka draining step back threes or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting to the line from these 15-foot stops. Like I would kind of think Giannis should have the inside track for the MVP, but I don't know. And so that's kind of the last real narrative point, which, if the Mavericks, like Luka's is 65 games now, Bobby Marks talked about how he's now eligible for the Supermax extension, which is like $350 million. So for all you clown shows out there that think Luka's just going to go away in free agency, shut the fuck up. He's going to sign with the Mavericks, whether it's an outright, whether it's an extension or he goes into free agency and signs for 5 years with the Mavericks. Like, he's going to get as much money as he can because he can, and then he can ask for a trade later if he hates the Mavericks. But that's just sort of the level of where we are now. It's not boring. It's just sort of preordained. And so I'll be interested to see how many games Luka plays. I don't know. What do we got? What do we got this week on the schedule here?
They're done with their 2 days off for the most part. It's Tuesday against Golden State, Thursday against Atlanta, and Friday against Golden State, which think
Sunday against the Rockets.
And so four games in the next 7 days.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, and that
maybe the schedule. I don't fear any of the teams that the Mavericks have on the schedule, but the amount of games at this late point of the season with Luka, as great as he looking a little like he's not 100%, like maybe that's where an unexpected loss sneaks in.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to head over to this other main live show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. Please continue to hang out. I'm going to throw up our video banner, and then we'll start our second show. Those of you listening on the on the regular audio stream on Monday or whatnot, just hang out and know that the second show will get posted sometime Monday afternoon. Josh, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk with you guys soon. Everybody go Mavs.